All right, you guys, Tyler here from GarageWarrior.com, your #1 resource for hard-hitting home workouts and living the warrior lifestyle. I have with me today my good friend, Logan Christopher. How's it going, Logan?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Oh, awesome, man. Well, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to me and do a call for the Garage Warriors out there. I wanted to start by kind of giving everybody like a history of your past, because most people don't know is we've been training together for a really long time. And so I wanted people to hear about your history, about how you got started with this whole thing.
Yeah, what we've been training something like 10 years together, more or less.
It's been about a decade.
Well, it really got started training. You and me were going to a commercial gym doing the whole bodybuilding thing just because we thought that's the only way there was possibly to train. A little while after that, started to really get into body weight exercises, and from there got into kettlebells. And from there, at that point, it really started to get out of control with the whole old-time strongman thing. And since this is going to be about kettlebell juggling specifically, we went to... It was with you and me, went to do the RKC back in, what was that, 03?
Oh, 05.
05.
Yeah.
Okay, 05. Yeah, but we started using kettlebells about in 03. Went to the RKC in 05. And I'd done a little bit with the juggling previous to that, but the lead instructor of the group that I was in was Jeff Martone, and he had become quite proficient in the kettlebell juggling. So I think it was the last day or something, he did just a little example with just something like the 53-pound kettlebell, but he's talking as he was doing it and just effortlessly flowing through it. And so when I got home back from that, I was like, I really want to learn these skills. So I started practicing consistently, and I got pretty good at it.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know already, Logan is one of the best kettlebell jugglers pretty much in the world at this point. Both him and I have been looking at video footage for a long time, trying to see who could have a claim to fame of that. And there's some guys doing heavier weights, but they're not doing advanced tricks. What Logan has to offer in his kettlebell juggling knowledge is some of the most advanced moves you've ever seen. And I know for sure because I've been along by him as he's coming up with this stuff, and it's just crazy stuff. So why don't you tell us kind of how the whole kettlebell juggling like insanity started? I know it started with the whole Martone thing, but from there, how did you end up taking it so far?
Well, the fact is that kettlebell juggling is fun. It's just plain fun. In fact, I think it's like the most fun training you can possibly have.
Yeah,
There's just something addictive about throwing around iron and building skills with that. So once I got started, I just wanted to keep going with it. And I studied Martone's works and, mastered basically every skill that he taught. And from there, it was a matter of finding some rare arcane Russian videos where they would do some juggling, because in Russia, a lot of times when they do the kettlebell sport competitions, they'll have like a demonstration by a juggler, someone who has practiced a lot. So just by studying those videos, I was able to pick up new skills. And then just practicing by myself, I came up with a whole bunch of new things that I'd never seen anywhere else before. It's just a matter of going out there, you're playing with it, and you come up with something new. For instance, the whole bottoms-up juggling stuff. Most people, maybe not most, but a lot of people familiar with kettlebells will be familiar with a bottoms-up clean or bottoms-up press, where you're holding the handle of the kettlebell and you have the mass of the weight up. So it's really grip intensive as you do it, and you have to balance while doing this press. It's a good way to challenge that grip. I figured, can we juggle into and out of this position? Can we flip it into this? And it's tough to do. It's some of the more advanced kettlebell juggling, but you certainly can. And it's going to build even better, quicker reflexes, better grip strength to be able to do that, and a whole bunch more.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the history of what Logan's got going on. Let's take it way back now. Now that we know that you're a world-class kettlebell juggler, world-class strongman, and let's start with if somebody's just starting out with kettlebells, they're learning the swing, they're learning the one-arm swing, why the heck would I want to be a kettlebell juggler instead of just doing those repetitious swings?
Okay, well, here's an interesting fact. In Russia and those surrounding countries where, the kettlebells were popular more so than they were over here, as like kids, when they began training, they didn't go far with the swing or snatch. They actually got started with the kettlebell juggling skills. I heard this from someone who was over there, and everyone has been led to believe that kettlebell juggling is this advanced skill set and only the best people in the world are doing it. But that's simply not true. You can actually get started with these basic skills pretty quickly. For instance, I was just actually training a friend, never picked up the kettlebell before. Within one day, I had him doing the basic front flips. I taught him the swing. Okay, it's good enough. Let's move forward. Then just go into the flips and have some fun with it. So kettlebell juggling may not be for everyone, but I think you actually get more benefits from it, like per exercise, than you do just by swinging the kettlebell or snatching the kettlebell, doing cleans, that sort of thing. Those are all great. I've done quite a bit with those, but kettlebell juggling just brings more to the table.
Sure. So one of the things I like to talk about when I look at kettlebell juggling is how much they can help you prevent injuries. Now, it sounds kind of crazy because you're throwing a kettlebell overhead and people go, what if it dropped on your foot or your hand, and so on and so forth. So why don't you talk to us about how kettlebell juggling can build that coordination that will help you prevent injuries, and also we'll touch on the core strength stuff that we've had discussions about as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yes, kettlebell juggling is more dangerous, the possibility of more danger than just swinging a kettlebell, simply because you are releasing it and catching it. So number one, you always want to do kettlebell juggling outside because you will be dropping the kettlebell. You want to do it in a place where that's fine to do. I prefer doing it in sand just because then you're not actually even damaging the ground. So you want to do that. Another thing is, start small and you build up from there. You don't want to, just take a 32-kilogram kettlebell out there and start throwing that overhead and all that. But you start with just real basic flips built off of the swing, which hopefully you're accustomed to. And from there, you start to build up and you go to more advanced skills. And generally, I recommend starting light with the light kettlebell as well. So assuming you do all those factors, then as far as becoming more injury proof, the reason this works with kettlebell juggling is, well, let's contrast it to just a normal swing. When you're doing a swing, you have an exact groove. You have one single pattern that you repeat over and over again for 10, 100, or thousands of reps. And you do that same thing over and over again. The thing is, if you look at sports or, any activities in life, they're seldom in just a single range of motion like that swing, that same pattern over and over again. But you're twisting, you're bending over, you have more load on one leg than the other, more load on one arm than the other. Just think about moving something or any sport or martial art. That's the sort of thing that kettlebell juggling gets, because you are building strength in every sort of angle. You're building the ability to absorb and redirect force. And all this together, as you build up in skill level and build up in the strength and the bigger weights you can handle, it's building your body up from every portion so that those things can't detrimentally affect you. I have successfully deadlifted 505 pounds, and I don't have classic good form when I do that. It's, some people say, oh, you're going to tear out your back doing it because I have something of a round back as I do it. But the fact is, from the kettlebell juggling, I've strengthened my back to such a degree that I'm actually stronger in that position than I would be with a flat back.
Sure. And, since I know Logan, he's about 6'2". What do you weigh? About 180 something?
185.
Yeah.
180.
Okay.
Float
and
around
for
there.
someone who's that lean, he's got a pair of spinal erectors that look like my forearms. So, and his pulling power is absolutely incredible. And just the other day, I watched him do a pretty cool kettlebell juggling routine with a 40-kilo kettlebell. So the power that you can build in that midsection from kettlebell juggling is pretty amazing. So we touched on core, we've touched on injuries and so on and so forth. Let's talk about how we can have more fun with our cardio.
Okay. Well, see, that's a thing. I was actually just discussing this with someone else. Like I said before, kettlebell juggling is fun. It's a huge different paradigm, really, than the average person and how they see their training or their workout. I tell people all the time, I wouldn't work out either if I had to spend 45 minutes on a treadmill. I would be simply bored out of my mind doing that. I wouldn't want to do it at all. But I can take a kettlebell, I can go outside and start practice just flipping it around in all sorts of ways, and I'm having fun doing it. many times in the past, I've gotten to the point where I can feel like my body's fatigued. I really shouldn't be doing anymore, but I keep going. I want to keep going, but I feel like I should stop when you're doing kettlebell juggling. The time just flies by because you're putting the fun into functional training. I know
Right.
that's the kind of funny to say that, but it really, go out there and try it. You'll see that because you can pick up skills so quickly, you can see the progress so fast, but you're having fun as you're working on your hand-eye coordination, the strength, endurance, everything involved. It's just so much fun in there. And speaking of cardio, yes, a kettlebell, and when you're juggling it, that will make you breathe quite hard. It
Yeah.
is not easy to do. A lot of times what's actually going to happen is if you're working on some hard skills or you're doing a bit of a set, a lot of times you're going to be holding your breath as you move into and out of these sometimes awkward positions as you're swinging and all that. So it's only once you drop the bell or set it down that the breathing catches up to you and you realize, wow, I am out of breath right now.
Yeah, if you guys have never done it, you really do have to give that kettlebell juggling a shot. It kind of brings me into the next topic. Let's say I'm not like yourself and I don't have, 3 or 4 different size kettlebells to juggle with. How far can I take one kettlebell?
Okay. Well, for most people, I mean, most people, if they have one kettlebell, it's not going to be a super heavy kettlebell. Usually it's a lighter or maybe medium ground. Really, with kettlebell juggling, the sky is the limit. You could get into such advanced tricks that, I mean, there's ideas I could come up with that I'd say are impossible, but if you practice enough, you could probably go there. With just a single kettlebell, you can be working up to doing things like double and triple flips, which are quite hard to do. You can be doing all that bottoms up kettlebell juggling. One of the new styles I came up with is kettlebell maneuvering, which is where you're doing the juggling as you're moving around in space. So instead of just standing in one spot, you're traveling around. And this jacks up the cardio involved in it because you're moving as you're doing it. So you got a lot more of your body in action as you're doing it. So what you can do with just a single kettlebell is basically limitless.
Right, right. So over at Garage Warrior, I talk a lot about movement progressions, and I know we've had some good conversations about this. The only way to do a movement progression with a swing is to make it faster, more range of motion, or to make it heavier, right? So
Right.
give us an example of how this kettlebell movement progression really works, because that's what kettlebell juggling is really all about. It's about starting at the basics and working up to these moves that most people look at and say are totally impossible, but they're totally achievable. So give us just walk us through like a visual example of how that would look from beginner to a more advanced move.
Okay.